I never thought a flower pot on my porch could wreck my life, but that's exactly where it started. One stupid citation from the HOA turned into hundreds of dollars in fines, sleepless nights, and eventually a showdown that ended with the president of our neighborhood board being dragged out in shame. You think you're safe in your own home until someone decides your life is theirs to control. When I first moved into Maple Creek, I thought I'd found the dream. Quiet cul-de-sac, neatly cut lawns, kids playing basketball in driveways, the kind of suburban calm you see in real estate ads. I was 36, finally buying a place of my own after years of apartments. I wanted peace, stability, a little patch of grass that belonged to me. For the first couple of weeks it was perfect. Then came the first letter. It was tucked under my door one morning from the Homeowners Association. A citation. Apparently the maple tree in my front yard, ironic given the neighborhood's name, had grown 2 inches taller than community code. 2 inches. I stared at the paper thinking, this has to be a mistake. So I called the HOA office, asked for clarification, and that's when I heard her voice for the first time. Linda Harris, chairwoman. She sounded polite enough until she cut me off with a line I would hear again and again. Rules are rules, Mr. Turner. If you don't like it, maybe Maple Creek isn't the right community for you. I laughed nervously, assuming she was half joking. She wasn't. Over the next month, the letters started piling up. Photos of my driveway because my car's back tire touched the edge of the curb. A warning because my trash bin was left out 30 minutes past the designated return window. A note about the porch light being too bright, potentially disturbing neighbors. It was suffocating. I'd worked all day, come home, and instead of relaxing, I'd scan my property like a criminal looking for evidence against myself. At first I tried to comply, changed the bulb cut. The branches wrote back apologetically. I told myself maybe they're just sticklers, maybe this will settle down. But the more I gave in, the bolder Linda became. It wasn't about the rules, it was about control. The breaking point came when I found a bright yellow envelope taped to my door, a fine for $500. Reason fence color not compliant with Maple Creek standards. The fence had been there when I bought the house. I hadn't even touched it. I stormed into the next HOA meeting, citation in hand, ready to explain. The room smelled like coffee and cheap carpet cleaner neighbors chatting until Linda walked in. Everyone hushed. She loved that. When it was my turn, I started to speak, but she cut me off mid-sentence. Mr. Turner, she said loudly enough for everyone to hear, if you can't follow community guidelines, then perhaps you should reconsider living here. The smirk on her face, the way people shifted uncomfortably, but stayed silent. It burned into me. I felt like I was being scolded in front of the class. I left that meeting humiliated, shaking with anger, but also shame. That night I lay awake replaying her words. Maybe she's right, I thought. Maybe I don't belong here. Maybe I'm the problem. Who wants to live in constant conflict? I even Googled real estate listings, imagining selling at a loss just to escape. It felt like she'd already won, like Maple Creek belonged to her, not us. And then, a whisper of hope. My neighbor Sarah Miller knocked on my door one evening. Single mom, 2 kids, always friendly but quiet. She leaned in, glanced around like she was being watched, and said, "You're not the only one. Linda's run 3 families out in the last year. Same tactics. Fines, intimidation, humiliation." My stomach dropped. I wasn't crazy. Sarah slid an envelope across my kitchen table. Inside were copies of emails, board correspondence that had been leaked. They showed Linda manipulating rule enforcement to funnel money into unnecessary repairs, all handled by a company owned by her son. It wasn't about lawn heights or porch lights, it was a racket. I stared at the papers, a mix of rage and adrenaline coursing through me. For the first time, I felt the balance shift. She wasn't untouchable. She wasn't even careful. She was sloppy. And now I had proof. I contacted the county housing inspector, handed over everything. They started an investigation. At the same time, I prepared for the next HOA meeting like it was war. I had a lawyer friend come along, a small recorder in my pocket, and the emails printed in bold letters. I wasn't just going to defend myself, I was going to expose her. That night the community room was packed. You could feel the tension buzzing. Linda walked in, chin-high pearls around her neck like armor. She started the meeting with her usual patronizing tone, calling out minor infractions from residents. When she turned to me, voice sharp, "Mr. Turner, I see you still haven't addressed the fence color." I cut her off. "Actually, Linda," I said, my voice steady, though my heart pounded, "I'd like to address something else." I pulled out the folder, held it up. "Would you like me to read aloud the emails where you directed HOA funds to your son's company in violation of county law? Or should I just let everyone here take a look for themselves?" The room went dead silent. Linda froze, then tried to laugh it off. "That's nonsense." Fabricated, but murmurs erupted around the room. People were leaning forward, eyes wide. Sarah stood up, voice shaking, but firm. "He's not lying. I've seen it too," another neighbor added. "So have I." She fined me for having a garden gnome, then pushed me to hire her son's landscaping crew to fix it. The dam broke. Years of fear and resentment spilled out. Resident after resident stood up accusing her, demanding answers. Linda's face went pale, then red. She shouted, threatened lawsuits, waved her hands, but no one was listening anymore. Her power dissolved in that room like sugar in water. Finally, someone called for a vote. Right there in that heated chaos, the board stripped her of her position, effective immediately. She tried to protest, but the gavel came down done. And when the county inspector later confirmed financial misconduct, it sealed her fate. I'll never forget the sight of her storming out, clutching her purse, eyes darting as if the walls themselves were betraying her. For once, she wasn't the queen of Maple Creek, she was just another neighbor exposed for what she really was. And that's where my story ends. No victory parade, no champagne. Just silence after the storm and a neighborhood finally breathing again. If there's one thing I learned, it's this: bullies only win when you stay quiet.